center of the inquiry that the White House apparently omitted from the memo. The revelations come from Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, the top Ukraine expert on the National Security Council, who testified for more than 10 hours yesterday, according to a lawmaker who was present for his testimony and another source familiar with it. Vindman told investigators that he tried to edit the White House's reconstructed transcript to reflect President Trump's mention of possible recordings of Joe Biden discussing Ukraine corruption and Ukrainian President Zelensky's specific mention of the gas company Burisma, which hired Biden's son Hunter. President Trump's mention of a Biden recording appears to be a reference to the widely circulated video of the former vice president speaking at an event for the Council on Foreign Relations. According to the New York Times, Vindman testified that some of his edits made it into the reconstructed transcript, but not the ones about the tape and Zelensky's Burisma comment. He did not speculate as to why the mentions of Joe Biden and Burisma remained omitted.
You really don't have to, but really, obviously, I mean, we keep getting bombshells in this case every day. Yesterday was a big one that actually they tried to sanitize the memorandum, the so-called transcript.
Yeah, and I think most people suspected that is exactly what happened when we got that summary. There was not a transcript, when we saw those ellipses in the text, when we heard the reports from the whistleblower that the actual transcript was placed in a classified server, usually reserved not for the transcripts of phone calls, but for top secret information. We suspected a lot of this true, and now, Clint Watts, we know from someone who was on the phone call and who now testified yesterday under oath that he tried to get the references to Joe Biden, the reference to Burisma back into the transcript, but they didn't turn up in the final summary that was presented to the public. That's exactly what happened.
What's remarkable is every day we find out about one more person that's in the White House or inside the administration that knew what was going on in terms of this phone call or the fallout from the Ukraine policy confusion. We find out that this lieutenant colonel, who's going to be honest when he goes in the door, who has his entire career and his reputation behind him, who is an expert on Ukraine and served in Moscow, did not see the phone call the way the transcript, which is really a summary, says that it was. And even more remarkable is you keep seeing key figures emerge in this. John Bolton essentially is a key figure that is in these meetings that saw some sort of problem in it. And you have to wonder now, based on the news, was that part of the reason why he left the White House? You look again at both Sondland and Rick Perry. They both show up in different contexts, and it doesn't quite match other stories that we've heard. So I think yesterday's testimony was quite devastating because you've got somebody of high integrity and high character who has a firsthand account, not just of the phone call, but also meetings that put people in context of the situation from multiple different directions.
You know, Claire, it seems like this is almost the antithesis of the way things unfolded with the Mueller report, where everything seemed a bit more understated than you expected. Here, every day's a new blaring headline.
Yeah, and Lieutenant Colonel Vindman has locked down credibility. He is not coming forward because he is against Trump or for the Democrats. He's coming forward because he was worried about the national security implications of what he was hearing, that he knew this would politicize the aid for Ukraine, which would put the Ukrainian people in jeopardy of being overrun by Putin, and that is a risk to the United States of America. I can't wait for him to be cross-examined by these clowns that I'm sure were ridiculous yesterday when they questioned him behind closed doors, when he is in his dress blues and they are trying to somehow impugn his credibility, because that is a moment that will be arresting for the American people, to see him be straight and watch the Republicans try to twist it into something that it's not.
Yeah, and they try to do that. I will say this, though. Yesterday, though, Mika, I think in response to what people saw on CNN or on Fox News the night before, the Republicans came out very early. I've got to say, in the age of Trump, it was one of the first times I've seen them react lightly on their feet politically and doing something very quickly to cut off further damage from what they saw on Laura Ingraham's show last night. And John Yoo, I mean, can you imagine being in his class at UC Berkeley and this guy really just makes a fool of himself, first of all, attacking attacking an American hero.
Implying that he might be committing espionage in some way.
Implying that he might be committing
Clearly
espionage.
implying.
By the way, that's not just really a terrible thing to say about an American hero that has a Purple Heart. It's also just dumb. I mean, if he doesn't know the law any better than that, that's not espionage. That's actually White House work. Then you just do wonder why people are in his class. Anyway, here are the Republicans yesterday saying, hey, you know what? Laura Ingraham, John Yoo, you guys stand in the corner. We're going to have none of that.
Now, I also want to say a word about something else that's been going on over the course of the last several hours and last night, which I think is also shameful. And that is questioning the patriotism, questioning the dedication to country of people like Mr. Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who will be coming today, and others who have testified. I think that we need to show that we are better than that as a nation. Their patriotism, their love of country. We're talking about decorated veterans who have served this nation, who have put their lives on the line. And it is shameful to question their patriotism, their love of this nation, and we should not be involved in that process.
I thank him for his service. I think his commitment to this country, but he is wrong in this.
I'm not going to question the patriotism of any of the people who are coming forward.
It's absurd, disgusting, and way off the mark. This is a decorated American soldier, and he should be given the respect that his service to our country demands.
So, Jake Sherman, what can we potentially expect to hear further from Republicans today? It seems to me this was the door opening a little bit and a little space between who the Republicans are and at least not Donald Trump himself, but Trump's tactics, because these were Trump-like tactics being employed by, you know, a conservative or Republican analysts, Fox News hosts. And it was very clear across the board here that they don't want to play those games.
Yeah, listen, there is no strategy here because this White House operates on the whims of Donald Trump, and that's not conducive for what's becoming a massive politically complex and policy-wise complex situation. The president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, seems like he's in legal trouble. There's no coherent message or strategy outside of the White House besides tweeting about what the president terms a perfect phone call and terming everybody who speaks to this committee a never-Trumper. So we don't know what we're going to hear. The problem with what McCarthy said there is he said Mr. Vindman was wrong. Now, how could he be wrong? He's sharing his opinion based on a phone call he was on. So I don't know what could be wrong about something that he witnessed firsthand. Basically, what McCarthy is saying is, I believe the president over you. Now, you could understand how Republicans are struggling here because the president and the White House wanted them to kind of lambast the process here for a long time. They did that, and now the president says, defend me on the merits, which most Republicans are not willing to do because they don't think the merits are deserving of defense at this point. And all they have is that Democrats are behind closed doors conducting this impeachment inquiry, which was sustainable for some period of time, but is becoming, according to my reporting and everybody I talk to, less and less sustainable as time goes by. I mean, there's 60 days or so left in this calendar year. Democrats feel, and they say privately, they need to bring this into the light. They need to make a coherent argument in front of the American people so Republicans can't say we're just relying on media leaks to know what we know. So, again, you could only take away here, there's one takeaway that you could have, and Republicans have it too, that this White House is not equipped at the moment to handle what is just a ballooning and very difficult and complex situation where they have no staff, so to speak. They have no war room because they have no communications operation. The press secretary hasn't briefed in months. They have no message they're driving besides don't trust these people because they don't like the president. So that's a strategy Republicans are not comfortable with. And that's not to say Democrats are doing everything right and by the book here. They're not, and they concede that behind the scenes. But again, the White House is ill-equipped here. The president is